Redditors who grew up with strict parents, what was the craziest rule or punishment you had to deal with? We weren't allowed to have food upstairs, but I had food wrappers in my trash can, so they searched my whole room, ripping clothes off hangers, throwing stuff out of drawers, etc. And for 3 months I wasn't allowed in my room for anything unless accompanied by one of them. I slept on the couch. The word disgusting was banned and could have been considered just as bad as saying frick. We weren't allowed to close doors unless we were in the bathroom. We weren't allowed to watch Cartoon Network because it was garbage. They actually put a parental lock on Cartoon Network. The worst punishment was one time they decided that we were such bad kids, my sister was like 14, I was 12ish, that they took everything we owned and bagged it up into garbage bags and made us carry them out to a burn pile, and they burnt everything we owned. All of my childhood memorabilia, pictures, clothes, diaries, everything. Burnt it all. Fricked up. When it was done burning the next day or so later, my sister and I looked through the ashes and all that was left were 2 silver rings of hers that we cleaned off and kept. Crazy crap. When I was in 1st grade, I had a writing homework assignment. My dad used to be weird about me erasing, because he wanted me to do it right the first time. I ended up erasing a lot on this homework, and my dad took the paper from me, ripped it in half and told me to start over. Turns out it was the last sheet of paper in the entire house, and I don't remember why, but for some reason we couldn't go and buy more paper that night. So ironically, I ended having to completely erase an old homework assignment in order to have a sheet of paper to start over on. I'm 22 now and still give him crap about this. As one should. I once got beaten and locked in the basement because my hands were literally not large enough to play a certain piano piece. I couldn't play an octave separation yet. Before you ask, yes, I am Asian. French guy here. I did violin, my brother piano. Although we enjoyed it at first, our love for music died out when passion was met with fear. I was not allowed to use public restrooms. I ruined our Disney trip because of how many times we had to go back to the hotel not on site when I was 6. And I quite honestly had accidents when I was far too old to do so because my parents had my teachers reporting bathroom use to them too. There was no place I could safely use the restroom other than home without getting into trouble. Finally I got to use public restrooms without punishment when I freaking went to college. No, I'm not kidding. But I got pretty good at hiding restroom use in high school because the high school refused to report it to my parents. Why did none of these teachers spot the abuse? How? My parents once grounded me for 2 years for getting a B on my report card. Took everything out of my room besides the bed, and I wasn't allowed to do anything with friends. A year and a half into it I asked if I could be ungrounded, and at that point they had actually forgotten what they grounded me for, but refused because I must have done something bad if they grounded me. Also they refused to let me stay up past 8 PM, even in high school. When you're being punished without reason, it's not punishment anymore. When I was in preschool, 1993, there was a girl who wasn't allowed to play outside because she'd get her dress dirty. Thankfully the staff always had a change of play clothes for her because F that. I brought play clothes to my cousin's graduation party. I said hi to all the adults and chatted for a while, then put my shorts and t-shirt on to defend my badminton title. I am 33. When I was a kid, I had dysgraphia, but my parents didn't know that. So I used to take time to do my homework. My mom would threaten to throw my homework out the window if I wasn't done by a certain time. I lived in an apartment block and this window was into a service shaft. I too had undiagnosed dysgraphia for years. I remember spending hours redoing my homework because it wasn't neat enough. When I was in elementary school at about 6 years old, I used to have accidents because my bladder was too small. My mom would punch me in the bladder when I got home to make me pee myself and make fun of me when I did. I still have issues, and it turns out that my bladder and uterus is fricked up from a genetic disease. That is awful, but now you have a cool secret handshake to show your mom every time you visit her in her underfunded old age home. No talking at the dinner table other than the occasional "do you want some more of this" or "please pass the salt." We could not talk about anything at all. No small idle chat was allowed. First time you did it, you got yelled at. Second time was a whooping and then sent to your room until the next day without the rest of your meal. I make it a point now with my kids to chat up a storm each and every meal. You could earn a full-on ass whooping for uttering any of the following. Shut up. But, accusing someone of lying for any reason. We were not permitted to use the words liar, liar, lying. Instead we had to say that's not the truth, or that doesn't sound right, or any other phraseology that wasn't some iteration of the word lie. I can relate. My siblings and I weren't able to say boring without my mom freaking out. Not that crazy, just something that stuck with me, since I generally consider my parents to be good caring parents, mainly just overprotective. But when I was 15, I got really depressed and kinda shut down academically and socially. My parents didn't know what to do with me. At one point, they ran out of ways to ground me, and my life was consequently made up of just going to school and coming home and lying motionless in bed, staring at the wall or sleeping. But my grades still hadn't improved, so they thought denying me of privacy solitude by taking away my bedroom door would persuade me to get my grades up. Spoiler alert, it didn't, lol. My stepmom and dad did this too. I was into choir and loved music, and they would take things that brought me any joy. As the eldest son of a Southern Baptist preacher, I was held to some high standards, being seen and not heard, and that my every action was a reflection of my father as a leader to his congregation. I found music to be a great outlet, but of course any non-Christian music was not allowed and immediately destroyed upon discovery. Spare the rod, spoil the child was a mantra ingrained in my daily life. Once I was into my teens and spankings with stretched out coat hangers was no longer enough to be considered punishment due to the lack of tears, my father moved on to shaving my head. Nothing like the constant reminder of how unworthy one is once their physical source of personal identity is forcibly removed. Frick, this thread sucks. Oh, one I can answer. My mother is an honest to God narcissist. I graduated from high school early at 16 and didn't go to college immediately, so I worked a part-time job while all my friends went to school. Anyways, when all my friends graduated high school, we celebrated by going to the movies. My friend's mom dropped us off and another friend's father was going to be picking us up. My mom was very upset at me going to the movies anyways, since it wasn't going to be over until after 9 PM, by bedtime at the time. Anyways, finally she lets me go on the condition that friend's dad gets me home by 10 PM. My friend's father ran into late night construction on the way home with me and several other friends in the van, and the closer it got to 10 PM the more I started freaking out, telling everyone I was going to be in huge trouble if I didn't get home like right now. My friend's father assured me he would speak to my mom and all would be fine. I was the first BB dropped off because I was panicking so severely. The moment the van pulls into the driveway, my mom comes barreling out of the house telling me she was going to kick my ass for being late and keeping her up. My friend's dad tries to calm her down and separate her from hitting me. That is when she realizes I'm chewing gum. Now my mother hated gum. Said the only reason you would ever chew gum was to hide something. So naturally she makes the assumption that I was late chewing gum because I was busy sucking my friend's dad's dong. Yup, that was the only explanation in her mind. She grounded me for 12 weeks, an entire summer. I wasn't allowed to have a phone, cell phone, TV or books the entire summer. Every morning my mom would take the cable box, home phone handset, and keyboard to make sure I couldn't do anything. Needless to say, my friends never invited me anywhere again in fear that my mom would call the cops and accuse me of sucking their dad's dong. She also used to report my car stolen if I didn't call her back when I was in college. Please tell me you two no longer see each other or speak. I refused to greet my sister's new boyfriend with more than a sup, so later that night my mom Hulk smashed my laptop, double fist style. I dealt with a narcissistic, abusive mother. Most of my punishments weren't huge because I was a really good kid, but on my 18th birthday, because I asked for gas money the day before, the first time ever, she took mine and her car keys with her to work, and took the shed key, no garage, so I couldn't even ride my bike, and left a note on the kitchen table saying happy 18th. Now you're an adult, so get out of my house. I spent my birthday alone, trapped, and miserable. All over $10. My mother went crazy and left the house in tears on my 18th birthday because I wanted to go out with my friends. She didn't come home till after 2 AM. Bit late, but one day, the news said school might be closed for a cold day, like a snow day, but for when it's cold enough your exposed skin freezes in 10 minutes. My mom demanded I start walking to school, or she'd report me to the cops as truant. We argued. TV said school started late that day. I decided to go anyways, the being better than the arguing. She then decided I was to stay home for her to call the cops. I shoved past her, which she yelled at me was assault, and then locked me out of the house. Halfway to school, I was told the school was closed. I had to call my dad to be let in the house again. That day I promised myself I'd leave home as soon as possible. I've stayed halfway across the country from my mom ever since. No TV, not as a punishment, just no TV, ever, because apparently it lets the devil in. The second I, as the last kid, moved out, they started watching TV all the time. As punishment, my dad would make us face a corner, stand on one leg and keep both arms straight up in the air for a certain length of time. If our leg or arms went down, he'd double the time. Sometimes he'd give you a surprise visit from his belt or shoe if he was particularly pee. At least I grew up to have fantastic balance. That's called a stress position. They did it to a certain prison's inmates. There was an entire scandal. When I was 13, no dating until uni. When I was 18, no dating until I finish uni. When I am 20 and about to graduate, no dating unless it's someone I choose for you. WTH. In a year or two it will be why haven't you found a good person to give you kids yet? I want grandchildren. My brother stepped on the PS2 controller cable, sending the PS2 flying off the shelf and smashing it all over the floor. As punishment my dad whipped me across the back a few times, and when I tried to run away he threw some rocks at me. The whip marks stayed on my back for a few weeks. My grandmother was a retired English teacher. One day, I called my brother stupid. I was 4 or so. She filled me in on her rule that, if I couldn't spell stupid but I called someone stupid, then it was really me that was stupid. Thus, I should never call someone a name that I couldn't spell. So in my 4-year-old head, rather than avoid name calling, realized that I did know how to spell dumb, so that word must be permitted. I spent the rest of the day overusing the word dumb and she wasn't quite sure what to do at that point. Mum gave me a black eye one night when I came home from a friend's birthday party at a skate rink. She made me tell people that I fell down and got hit in the eye by one of the wheels on a skate. I was 12. It was because I forgot to put away the dishes before I left. She also regularly broke remote controls, throwing them at me, would slam my doors open so hard the doorknobs would smash through the drywall, stole the allowance my granddad gave me, no matter where I hid it, and recently ripped a pair of my headphones out of my ears while I was using them and broke them by repeatedly whipping me in the face with them, then followed it up by punching me a few times in the face. The last instance was about 4-5 months ago. I moved out and she regularly contacts me demanding money. I really hope you aren't giving her money. You have been visited by the Inspector Doggo. Comment your confession. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.